Hey everyone, welcome back to another exciting episode of Attack Productions. Today I bank off being joined once again by Jimmy, Jake, James, and like always, Fluff.
That's right.
What's going on, yo?
What's up, everybody?
What up, people?
And like always, there's buttons down below. Feel free to click them. They're there for a reason. Today's matchup is kind of like a rematch, but this time we got it on camera. It's King Cole versus Mechikabura. Fluff is piloting the King Cole deck, and I think there's some changes to it from his profile, while Jimmy's bringing Mechikabura. I'm not really sure if you changed much of it since your profile.
Very minor changes. There have been dramatic, different lists that I've been testing lately, but this one is not too much different from the original. I think maybe 4 cards total had changed.
Well, with that being said, guys, take it away.
I guess before we get into it, the King Cold list didn't really change. I'm running it mainly changed ratios, and then I added a couple one-ofs as tech options. So, like you see, I opened a Kakunsa in my opening hand, which I just charged. But then I also ended up playing a Unison as a way to clean up the field and apply in-game pressure. But essentially, the deck is still the same.
Yeah, that Kakunsa, that coming down on turn 1 kind of, I don't want to say startled me, because, I know you have a lot of love for that card, and a lot of your green decks feature that card. But I had already struggled learning what King Cold wants to do, just because of all the field cards, and to me, a lot of the field cards look exactly the same.
Yeah.
So I did a pretty good job at learning what they all do, but also keeping track of all the different field cards in play and what you could play, plus all of the other good green tech that you had in the list, like Kakunsa. I was worrying about the counter plays, the green counters. I had to do a lot of mental gymnastics in this match on what do I need to worry about at what time.
So I can't remember Fluff's ratios, but you're saying that Fluff kind of did a U, but instead of Pan, it was Kakunsa?
Sort of. Because, I know Fluff's a one-of type guy, so it was in my head the entire match, that could be a one-of, so I don't need to really worry about it, but in the back of my brain, I was thinking about it, so...
Jimmy and I approach decks very similarly, where we like toolboxy things. Like, we will include a one-of in a deck if it solves a particular problem the deck might have. So, it's not uncommon to see one of us playing a single card as a one-of. Even though, most people would consider that inconsistent, it works for our toolboxy mind.
Mm-hmm. And we talked about it.
When you play it at a one-of, anyone outside of our locals is going to see that Kakunsa being played out and wonder, are there 2 or 3 more that I need to worry about? So doing that toolbox mentality is going to be great anywhere outside of locals, where you're going to be running into people that just know that you play it at a one-of.
Yeah, absolutely.
And when it comes to those mind games mean so much.
Yeah, for real. Me and Fluff that talked a lot, and a lot of people at the shop have noticed this too, that me and Fluff's matchups are always the grindiest,
they're greasers, and it's literally just waiting for one person to mess up or to get caught with their pants down.
I'm not saying this is not saying anything bad about everybody else at the shop. Everybody at the shop is fantastic players, but nobody pushes me like Fluff in a match. I have to play at a completely different level when I'm against Fluff than anybody else at the shop. And again, that's not saying everybody else is bad players. I still, have rough games with other players, and they're, some people I would even consider on the level of Fluff, But
I've been playing card games with Fluffy for nigh on a decade now, and Fluffy is great at playing against the meta, but he is fantastic against playing against the player. Fluffy knows the player, and he knows how to play against the individual versus the meta.
Yeah. And that's a lot of it, because, you know, our meta is really unique, where you might see a red Brawly list or a dark Brawly list. And just because it's red Brawly or dark Brawly doesn't mean it's going to function the same way that, like, a video that got profiled on Paladino or Eggman's channel, or that topped at this large event, would function, because people play their own different ways and their text makes sense to them. And so knowing a person's individual preferences and personalities is a leg up in playing against a match like that.
Yeah, my view on it is that me and Fluff, like we said earlier, are very similar deck builders. So we kind of know how each other think, and I think it's a game of we're both looking at each other going, I know what you're going to do, and then you're looking back going, I know what you're going to do, and that's why it becomes this massive grind. Where when I'm playing against somebody like Bancroft plays these weird off-the-wall decks that I have no clue what they do, and, you know, they catch me off guard. Jake, he will play these like cute little techs that don't seem like a lot on the surface, but once you delve into the deck, it makes this cascading advantage that is really hard to get over sometimes.
Yeah.
People like Tanner will sit down and just roll you with a deck, and you'll just be sitting there like, how does this work? Like, you know,
Matt is really good about showing you what is an opening in your deck that you didn't necessarily perceive as a potential opening, because Matt is the type of player, if he sees an opening, he goes for the throw, and he'll just beat you. You'll feel completely safe, and he'll just beat you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and the entire time that we're playing this game, I know there are things that are probably in your hand that I'm gonna just have to eventually at some point play through. So I'm just getting to the point where, you know, next turn we're going to 3 energy. What do I want to do on that turn? Do I start to push really hard? What do I do? I'm probably, whatever card that I play here, if I put a battle card out, if it's 4 or less, your leader's going to take it and then give you more cards to pressure me with. If I put out something that's higher, I'm probably going to get Supreme Kai'd or Poutined. Those are really the 2 options that I see happening. But because of my knowledge of you having those in hand, I can't not play the game because you have those cards. I just have to try to beat through them.
Yeah, at this point in the game, like you mentioned, Poutine was not even a thought in my head, because I knew how you could just pivot with this deck and just, you know, swing out big bodies.
Yeah.
That I didn't want to tap myself out. And I had a myriad of negates at this point. The spoken of Poutine. I had a Supreme Kai. I had my Power Burst, the other negate that's escaping my mind right now, with the really dope art. But Poutine was not something that was going through my head at this point in the game. But I'm glad to see that you were thinking about Poutine at this point, because that means the tech works.
Well, it's a lot of like, could I put, you know, on 3 energy, how many battle cards could I put on the field for 3 energy? Mm-hmm. Is it worth me trying to go wide versus going tall versus going reservative versus, you know, just chillaxing a little bit and not necessarily trying to push the game or pressure the game? But Mechikabura is one of those decks, like, Mechikabura can get out of hand really fast if you let it. Mm-hmm. So I just have to play through it. This is the start of one of the more brilliant plays that I've ever seen. Like, I couldn't even be mad about this overall, like, arcing chain of events. So he warps it with Supreme Kai. So I lost it for the turn. It is what it is. I was expecting that. And then Jimmy's like, oh, it comes back. Skills are negated for the turn. And then we'll discuss the second half of that saga here in a moment.
Yeah, we do catch it. It does come back into play.
It does come back into play.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think we take a few actions here, but it should have come back into play at the end of Fluff's turn.
Yeah. It doesn't matter. The card doesn't have anything that I can do on my opponent's turn. It is a blocker, I believe, but that doesn't matter. Like the skills are turned off. I can't do anything with the blocker skill. So
yeah, and honestly, that Frieza is one of the more scarier cards in King Cold for me, outside of the Unison. And this is the play that we were talking about. So I really did not want to deal with that Frieza at all. So I dropped Mechikabura and called 5-drop Frieza BR.
And in my head, I'm like, okay, he just burned a Supreme Kai. He's only got one energy open. He called 5-drop Frieza. I just don't need to drop another Frieza next turn. I'm fine. I've got this big Frieza. I'm going to be able to remove problem cards. I'll be able to move forward on my game. And it was just, and I wasn't even like that worried about that Frieza because in my head, his effects are still negated. And Jimmy goes, no, you've got his effects back. He's back up. He's actually a threat now. And so like that immediately put me into like a sense of calm, and I swing with him. And I get punished for it so fucking hard. And like I said, it was so smooth I couldn't even be angry about it.
So the skills are only negated for the one turn?
For the turn that it comes back. Or for until the end of the next turn.
No, it's only for the turn. It gets its skills back at the end of your turn. It's just so it won't proc any on-play autos.
Yeah. Oh, so there, King Kai, or Supreme Kai, warps it again, but because he had played Mechikabura and called 5-drop Frieza, that Frieza just stays warped now.
This is that same chain reaction that Jake had mentioned a while back ago, I think, with Borgos?
With what?
Boiling Berg.
Boiling Berg,
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just good. Like, I couldn't even be mad about it. I was like, yeah, that's a thing. So now I just have to think about, what is my best sequence through this series of turns. I'm really scared to commit my energy into other things because I just know how wide and crazy that Mechikabura can go. And Jimmy is one of those players that, if given an opportunity, he will make the best play possible. And if I don't put a puzzle out there for him that might throw him off of it, just even a teensy little bit, I'm going to get punished hard.
And I think there's no better puzzle than green with 3 open energy.
Yeah.
Because you have to work around so many things. And I do want to take it a step back and talk about the Mechikabura play. So one of the options that I had in that situation was to drop the 4-drop Toa to just warp away the Frieza for 1 energy. I end up having 2 of them in my energy right now. The reason I did not do that is because I wanted to put more pressure out on the board and get as many attacks through as I possibly could, because I knew that at one point in this game it's just going to come down to grinding out dormant potentials. So I wanted to get the life total down quickly, and Toa's not a fantastic card for attacking with. It's more of a defensive card. And I wanted to save it till later on in the game if he had another big threat that I wasn't aware of in this list.
Yeah, the King Cold is surprisingly defensive at times, where, the field cards essentially, I guess the best way to look at the field cards is the field cards let you cycle through your deck, and they've really moved the resources so you get to see the things that you want to do. I ended up cutting my charismatic villains down to 3, and I did not see charismatic villain as much on this night as maybe I would have wanted to. But when I was running it at 4, they were just flooding my hand. So 3 still feels right, but there were points that I really wanted to have a Frieza to be able to drop it to pop one of your threat cards. And I played the King Cold out, and you just negated it and took, or you took it, so you would have that pressure, and I wouldn't have that 20,000 body on the field.
I knew in this matchup that I wouldn't have a lot of opportunities to steal cards. Since you do have a 4-drop Frieza, and then you have your 5-drop Frieza, and I knew that you knew about how fantastic the ability just to snatch one of my opponent's cards was.
Yeah.
So I knew you weren't going to be dumb enough to throw out the 4-drop Frieza so early and let me snatch it. So the King Cold playing that out, I seen that as my one opportunity to be able to gain control of one of your cards.
I pretty much tried to set myself for the idea that those revived and revileds are just not even viable for you unless I'm trying to end the game.
Mm-hmm.
So, because they just gives you a 20,000 body. Mm-hmm. And even though it does lose its skills, it loses the blocker, it loses the dual attack. I just don't want to mess with it.
Of course.
And so here we're just kind of using the poutine, we're using blueberry to add quality of cards. I'm using the Paragus to set myself up to get things kind of going. Paragus is a nice inclusion because you can't have duplicates of the field cards out. So if you've already kind of used your leader pop ability, or you don't have a Frieza on board, the Paragus will let you eat one of your field cards off to open up the opportunity for you to play one later.
Yeah, I think Paragus is a very strong inclusion. And it's one of those weird cards that was never intended for what it's used for nowadays of popping field cards. And I don't know if that was intended or just a oversight on Bandai's part when printing that card.
Yes, absolutely. I gotta worry that was not the intention, because I know that like OG Brawly uses it for that purpose too.
Mm-hmm.
But it really is a viable thing. So there, you probably noticed the screen changed for half a second. Jimmy went through his turn 5, and swung with his leader first. And on the leader swing, I activated Dormant, and he countered the Dormant with the Boo Secret Rare. We actually ended up finishing that turn out the way that it would have kind of evolved, with him taking that off, killing my Unison. When we got into my turn, I was like, wait, you negated with that, or you countered on the leader swing, and you can't do it then. So we went back. We hadn't really drawn a ton of cards. Nothing had really changed. I didn't take any life, so I still don't know what's in my life. I didn't draw extra cards except for the card for my next turn. So we just reset the field and redid this turn.
Yeah, he just focused on your Unison, and that's why it was so easy to go back on that.
Yeah. So in one of the variations of this list that I've been testing, I've been heavily testing into some of the new Spirit Boost cards. And one of those being Hunt for the Demon God, or Hunt of a Demon God.
Yeah.
So I have been using that card to snipe Dormants in many matchups on Untap, that I completely forgot that Majin Buu could was blocked to a non-leader attack.
Yeah.
So as soon as you put the Dormant out there, I was like, oh well, I got the counter in the hand here, eat this. And having to step that back because I had focused my entire game plan around being able to drop that Boo in that situation.
Yeah.
It really threw me off and put me off tempo.
It threw me off too,
Yeah.
because I knew what I was going to do, and then I get to keep the Unison, which really kind of changed what I ended up wanting to do there.
And you play a Boo of your own in this situation.
Yeah, so we're both playing Boo, and Matt asked me earlier why I didn't run Heroines and why I ran this. And I think the reason that I'm running this instead of Heroines is because you don't go wide and you go tall. When you need an attack to go through, it just has to go through.
Mm-hmm.
There's really no option behind it. It has to go through.
And in this situation, I had known you had the Boo in hand because you had accidentally flashed the card earlier in the game.
Yep.
So I was trying to bait that out because I was gonna negate with the Poutine, with my 2 open energy. But after the Boo effect, and then there was a ruling call for another game going on at this time, I just completely forgot the Poutine was in my hand. I was sitting there shuffling my hand through. and ended up tapping an energy for Power Burst instead of tapping 2 energy for the poutine.
I'm sitting here going, no way it's this easy. Because I'm expecting poutine. I'm like, there's no way it's this easy. Like, there's no way.
And I end up comboing it off right there. But as soon as, like, right when I was about to combo that, I was sitting there, I looked up and flip, I was like, I fucked up. Like, I fucked up. Like,
I saw him combo the poutine, and I knew exactly what he had done. Like, yeah. And I'm not trying to, like, be cocky when I say that, but it felt too easy.
Like, you know, I mean, obviously it would have been much harder if I was able to play the poutine, but
it would have ended the turn. I wouldn't have kept going.
Yeah, like I remember talking to you about it, and you're like, yeah, you said you would have ended the turn. I was like, okay, what I have done in my match or in my next turn, and you see how many fantastic cards I'm comboing off, and how much energy that I had, that I could really go for a heavy swarm. And then also setting on top of the Majin Buu secret rare, even if you had a dormant, it wouldn't have been an issue.
Yeah. Well, and you look at what it took on my side of the field to get the win. After getting the triple strike with the Unison, I had to double strike with the leader, which was like a 45, 50,000. I swung with the Buu, which I comboed up to like 50,000, I think. Dual attack with the Frieza at least 25,000 per swing, and then 2 swings with the Bardock to kill you, to deal that last point of damage. And I only ended up having 3 cards in my hand. There's no way, if that poutine had hit the field, would I have been able to sell at that game.
I was sitting there trying to figure out, like, because we were joking afterwards. I was looking at my field and looking at my hand and then looking at my energy and trying to figure out what I did wrong until I had to start comboing on that attack. And I was like, oh, you know, it's the card that could have maybe won me the game. I'm having to combo off for 5k. Like, that was really demoralizing.
If it makes you feel any better, it came back to me in round 3 because I had the exact same thing happen to me. So,
and with that being said, thank you all for tuning in. Hope you all enjoyed the match as much as Jimmy did. With that being said, keep in mind there's buttons on the screen as Fluff does the outro.
I honestly hope you enjoyed the match a little more than Jimmy did. Just because Jimmy lost. And I can't imagine he likes rewatching those losses. Because I know I hate having to rewatch when I lose mine. So I feel like it more than that. I feel like I'm one of these...
Wait.
What?
If we're going to talk shit about me losing, we've got to talk shit about you not being able to win when it really matters, you know, like in situations of shop championships where there's actually something on the line, if you know what I'm saying. Like, I don't know, but I think we need to have that conversation instead of the conversation about how I feel about a loss at, you know, something that really doesn't matter at an unsanctioned event.
I don't know why the fuck you're talking during my segment full. Read your cards, know your plays. Let us make the mistakes so that you don't have to. And as always, fluff out.